I went to Sarah and I had these big projects, Sarah Blood, and there's a lot of tubes and they're varying between 8 millimeter and or even 18 at some points. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to power these to afford these or anything. And she was like, why don't you contact Morgan Crook and see if they'll sponsor? So I sent them a proof of concept of stuff that I was like, is there any way that I could get some transformers or just some help? Or they reached back out to me within a couple hours and were like, would love to sponsor your show and all that. And I was very grateful for that and was able to power my entire show.
Neon lights, I'm baffled. Pick it apart like samples. Give me all I can handle. Light me up like a candle. I'm taming lightning. Percy got that lightning. Plasma in my veins.
Welcome back and welcome to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'm Percy Ackles II, your host for Taming Lightning. I'm an artist, alchemist, and educator at the Pittsburgh Glass Center, where I'm pioneering the development of a studio for the emergence of plasma and neon light art. Self-study in this field has led me to a growing network of experts and institutions that allow for conversations with artists, makers, and experts related to plasma, neon, glass, and beyond. Through this podcast, I hope to expand our understanding of plasma and neon light, explore the potential for electrified gases as an artistic medium, and have fun making and sharing what I learn along the way. Hello, Lightning Tamers. This is episode number 52, and in today's podcast, recorded December 2nd, 2021, I'll be joined by light and space artist Ethan Samaha. Ethan Samaha was born in 1999 in Pittsburgh, PA, and is a light and space artist utilizing neon and sculpture to get an understanding of time, space, and perception in large installations. Ethan holds a BFA in Art and Design, a focus in Sculpture and Dimensional Studies, with minors in Performance Design and Technology and Dance, from the New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University. Ethan is visiting here in Pittsburgh for the week and had reached out to me to meet up and talk about neon and plasma. I was working in the studio and I suggested we meet up at the Pittsburgh Glass Center. After giving a tour of PGC and about 2 hours of nerding out about plasma illumination, we decided to record a podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Ethan Samaha.
Thank you for having me, Percy.
So let's talk about your educational background, because I'm familiar with Alfred University. I've met the head instructor for the glass program there, Angus Powers, and I met Sarah Blood and James Akers as a alumni, Hugh Elliott as an alumni from the neon programming there, to name a few. So can you tell us about your BFA in Art and Design and some of your background in the arts that led you to where you are now?
Yeah. So I started going to Alfred for ceramics. It's known for ceramics, all that. Wanted to go into ceramics. Took first intro to glass with Angus Powers sophomore year. Fell in love with glass, and then saw light. Light in space is what the class is called, but it's the neon class taught by Sarah. And I was like, I need to do this. In high school, I was doing theatrical lighting. I was lighting designer at my high school. And then when I was picking a school, Alfred had a theater department that was very flexible, that you could go and get your BFA in it, and vice versa with that. So I chose Alfred for lighting design because I was interested in light at that point of a theatrical way, but also bringing artistic value into theatrical lighting in a way instead of an engineering perspective of it. And then fell in love with neon and realized that I'm able to create that light and create these spaces, and that I can light with my own work, and seeing what that is available to do with bending light instead of just having a theatrical light pointing down into space. So,
and any influences from Sarah's own work and how she approaches the medium of neon as part of a sculptural media?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, she's definitely influenced my my work, and I've been influenced by her work with just the colors that she chooses, specifically the She Bends exhibition in Loveland. Was it Loveland, Colorado?
Yeah.
Or the most recent one with the bright colors from that on the black glitter, and that's referencing, or that is influencing the color choice that I choose, but not really. I mean, I saw her work, I fell in love with it. I loved talking with her about it and all that, but there is definitely influence in color and all that brought over.
And, you know, university, and it's no surprise that you would try a lot of different things that you're interested in, you know, spread out. And a lot of people, they kind of want to focus very narrowly. The system tries to make you explore different things. But it seems like you really embrace that yourself. Mm-hmm. So this interest in theater, has that been something before you went to university? Have you participated? In what ways have you participated prior to your education?
Yeah, so prior to university, I was always taking art classes. I was trying to take as many as I could in high school and all that. And then one day I wandered into the theater, and they were doing a rehearsal, and I was like, I want to do this. And I started stagehands, working with the theater. And then I was like, I really want to do lighting. I want to work with light and understand that and see what that process is, in designing for theater. And fortunately, the senior that was doing the lighting design, she was leaving. She was graduating, so they had no one to back up behind. So I kind of took myself in and sat with her and did a whole show with her as her last show, and realized how this works and all that. So then I became that lead designer for lighting and all that through 3 more years of high school, and then went into university doing that. So I always had this background in emotion in colored lighting, and this side of putting an emotion towards the color red or something. Or in theater, red's used for blood, love, or whatever. So I have that background, but what does a warm white do? Or a softer blue? What's that relation between the audience and the show, or what's that mood setting to that? So I said it. That's sort of my background on light a little bit, and how I got interested in color and seeing the amount of color that theater lighting can have. I mean, there's probably 400 different colors you can choose from. They're all slightly different.
Yeah, that's quite fascinating. Can you give us a little bit more on what it's like, or what the task of being a light designer is, and how that, just to kind of give people a little bit more to understand that, so they can really appreciate what's involved in that task or that process.
So usually what happens with lighting designers, or the whole process behind it, is getting the script, or getting the script of the show that's going to be happening months ahead or a couple weeks ahead of it, rereading that, and then starting to put out sections where you want to have a lighting change and all that. So most commonly at the beginning of the show, the lights will come up, and that's the beginning of the show. At the end of the act, it'll go down. But then in between that, if someone enters in to the space, then how are they lit it? Or if people are walking across the stage, what's that cue for more lights to come on, or a different color to change, or if the mood's changed, how is that done? And I mark out all those spots that I want to go in, and then I go into plotting where my sort of the circles of light are that I want to do. So I split the stage into however many parts the stage is. If it's like a 50-foot wide stage, then it might have 10 spots every 5 feet, or every 8 feet, or something a nominal kind of position. And I start putting on front light, which is from the front of the stage, back light from the back of the stage, just around if I need to do anything sort of side lit, or if I want a dramatic moment from the side, how does that, or to portray a villain or protagonist in the show and all that.
Yes.
And then I start going to color and start pulling colors and make a color story of, oh, this show is very dark, but it has some light moments. How can let's use dark colors and then bring this light element in. And then I get into setting up all the lights and programming them all so they're all digitally cued into a computer system and is individually cued on and designed and sit through rehearsals. Probably a week long of rehearsals, just focusing and getting timing right, getting cues right. So where if someone walks off stage, then I can block out that section and bring the focus to there. So I'm really bringing a focus to wherever the action is, or if there's, for example, like Beauty and the Beast, if the rose is falling, highlight on that versus
the hand,
through the hand or something. So it's drawing a focus to that.
Okay. Yeah, I learned something here. Like I'm aware of there's quite a bit of planning and also a little bit of like fine tuning and play with the use of color, timing, and things like that. So I appreciate you being able to kind of highlight that for us. It's always good to learn different things about light that isn't particularly about creating plasma, neon, or a particular artwork, but how it takes place in a larger artwork or art performance. So it's kind of funny how, you go from I'm coming here for ceramics, and naturally, like I mentioned, you're going to try a whole bunch of different things because that's your open world now, no longer the tutorial level, and then you find yourself in glass.
Yeah,
the ceramic killer. Yes. Not really. I mean, it's a ceramic expander because you find yourself using a lot of different materials. So you could be a ceramic purist if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. So you came through this introduction, which just was like a survey of different glass processes there when they do. Are you primarily working in the hot shop? I'm not very familiar with their programming at Alfred.
Yeah, so it's a various of shops. So you do glass blowing, you do glass casting, you do cold working, fusing, and you can work around that. Or there's a specific project that you do. Let's do a casting project, or let's do a blowing project, or let's cold work a piece of glass and see if you can get it to a polish or something. So there's technical skill involved with some of these projects that are into your junior year of where it's more technical stuff, or you're getting into that medium, diving in more and doing your own research and getting a better understanding of it. So when I was in the class, I was really not really focused in the glass blowing. I was really focused in the glass casting and the pouring big pieces of glass and cold working them down and going to a complete polish, and even pushing what could be cold worked. So the piece of I cold worked a piece of obsidian from the very raw chunk of it to a high polish, and that was a sort of a learning skill of, okay, how do I use the belt sander? How do I use the buffing wheels? How do I do hand lapping? And how do you get that all the way to complete polish?
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about yesterday, as we nerded out, was about that in particular. And when it comes to glass, glass is soft and hard, and there's a lot of spaces in between. Lead glass is like, if you took it onto to your typical belt sander with 300 grit, that's kind of like a satiny finish. You can eat through that like nothing. You would eat through it like butter. But if you took boro, it would take you a little bit longer. And so the differences between something like obsidian, you mentioned it was like a bit of a harder glass. It wasn't soft. So when we're talking about hardness, we're talking about how easy does it scratch, or it can be like remove material from it from using some type of abrasive. And so that surprised me a little bit. But as you learned, the harder the glass, the more care it takes to get it to a polish. You need to really get down to the level of any scratches that appear. Otherwise, they end up showing up pretty blatantly.
Yes, and obsidian is extremely hard, but it's also brittle. It's a natural forming glass, so there's fractures in it. So it was really a test of skill, but then also patience. It taught me patience of if there's any flaw in it, because there's bubbles in it, and I wanted a completely smooth surface, so I would go back and take more off, so there was no natural bubbles in it, and it looked like a sort of this out of space object.
Yeah.
It's different.
And then to do, I mean, from talking to James and some of the other graduates of Alfred who either focused in or taken a class in neon, that tends to be like a later class that you need to take after you get your fundamentals. Is that correct?
Yes. So you take intro to glass first, or a sculpture class, and then your sophomore, that's your sophomore year, and then junior year you have access to the neon shop and into the neon program.
And what's that program called?
Space and light. Light and space.
Light and space.
Yeah.
Space. Yeah. What can you tell us about the light and space class and how it was taught?
It was really an intro to light as a material. So you learn how to splice, you learn how to attach electrodes and bend, and then later on in the semester you learn how to process your own tubes if you'd like, and sort of become more independent within the studio of going in and bending your own piece for the critique that's in 2 weeks, and then processing it yourself and learning the whole ins and outs of the whole studio, and taking and making your own light, basically.
Can you give me a assignment that you've done that you found was particularly challenging?
Yes, I can. Very first assignment, no matter what semester you're in, you make a bamboo stick, and it's just taking a 4-foot piece of glass, cutting it up, splicing it together, and you basically learn how to join two pieces of glass. And that is, to me, that was the hardest thing out there, to just splice at the very first moment, or even going from you do like 12 millimeter first, and then the next week you do 8 millimeter to 15, or 15 to 12, and learn how to taper down glass and all that.
Yeah, that's always pretty challenging, no matter what.
Yeah, and then the week after that you do electrodes, and electrodes are a thinner glass than tubing is. So you got to factor in the timing of that. So that was extremely hard. And then going into classic glass and all the cobalt blue and all the Italian glass from Avalon and other manufacturers of it.
They tend to have different melting points?
They have different melting points, just like glass color. So they have different flux point versus a clear tube coated. Clear tubes coated are roughly all the same, but you go to red, like a ruby red, and it's extremely harder. It's brittle.
And because use a descriptor like stiff.
Yeah.
It'll move, and then it'll still be hot, but it won't move as much as you need to. And if you end up breaking it, because it wants to move a lot less and cool relatively quickly.
Or like blue. Love a good cobalt blue, but blues are kind of easier in my working experience. But
they are. I mean, you just gotta, because you get your heat faster, the heat lasts longer on it, and you get to make your moves. So you got to be worried about not spending too much time in the fire. So, what about some of the conceptual projects that you worked on?
Oh, that's a good one. Sarah Blood, who's a professor at Alfred, she has a reading that she puts almost every single class through, and it's When the Machine Stops by, I forget the author that writes it, but it's a sort of a dystopian reading, a little bit of basically when this spaceship or this Earth, I don't remember the whole backstory of it. This other planet and people are around everywhere. Basically, the whole Earth becomes a machine. Everyone lives in pods and families are split apart and all that. But then what's the outside world dystopian, and you don't want to go out there. But then when people go out there, it's the coolest thing out there that they've seen in however many years from them living underground. So like that's, from there we take that and we're like, how do we design our own thing? What's this machine that stops, or what does this look like? And that gets you really to think about, okay, how can I bring in other materials into light and all that, and use other materials to get to that point of that. Or it's how to make like wearable neon, and how do I make a neon sculpture that can hang on my body that isn't either a clothing item, accessory. So like Sarah has like a no sunglasses and no bags kind of policy. So it's like, okay, how do I make sculpture to fit on the body, to work on the body, but then also work within the limitations of the little transformers and the battery packs.
When you were approaching that, what was your angle of attack? If you could recall.
I think around that time I was really into the gas mixing that we were talking about yesterday.
See, like a week, huh?
like a week. I'm like, days are all messed up. That I was really focused on that, and I was spending my time on mixing gas and all that, and seeing what I can get from that. That I wasn't really had an idea.
You didn't do the assignment?
I did the assignment, but I kind of did it on the fly. Like, it wasn't the best. It wasn't whatever. But then I think I might have failed the assignment. Don't know. Don't tell Sarah Blood. I don't even know what I got for that grade. But from there, like, I can name of everything else that people did. I don't remember mine. I mean, we had a student that did a neon under his car for a wearable. But
I don't know. The form the form will be the important part there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you don't see the neon and you don't see what it's attached to, it's almost no different than an underglow kit.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to knock on this guy's decision. I don't have no image of it. So I was like, that's where, like, in a particular cultural sense, when you do that under your car, you have to be able to see it, and it has to impact something else other than seeing the glow underneath the car.
Yeah. I don't remember what I did for that. It's very, very, very vague, distant memory in the back of my head.
That's okay. I mean, how long did you spend before? The BFA, is that part of the initial programming, or is that something you had to apply for? Because depending on the university, it's something you apply for that leads you to a solo exhibition. Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so it is sort of, when you get into the program, it sort of is something you have to apply to. You have to apply for your solo show at the end of your senior year, and work towards it. And yeah, I really don't know. That question kind of
is the solo show like a requirement?
Yes, it is. Yes, okay. It is a requirement at the end of your year, and that's basically your final grade for your senior semester, in the spring semester or so, or in the December semester. So we have people doing December shows, May shows, and that really is something to work towards. Your basically senior year is a whole year that you do your own research, you do your own work, you develop your own ideas, and then every couple weeks or so you have a critique with your two advisors. So senior year you get to choose two advisors of what studios you want to work in. So if you want to work in neon, you choose Sarah Blood. If you want to work in the hot shop, you work with Angus. Or at Alfred, you can switch between even different areas of focus. So I could take a class in sculpture and take a class in ceramics. Alfred's really big on pushing where you want to go and all that. So for me, I did neon and had Sarah Blood as an advisor and Angus Powers as an advisor for both glass and neon. Mm-hmm. But I was able to work with Sarah and then show neon in Angus's crits, and vice versa, or just really focus on neon.
Okay.
And then the end of the whole semester at May, you have a a whole big solo show that you put together, designing spaces or having a space given to you. So you basically apply for the whole show. You go through a whole application of a normal show, basically. So you submit a lot of documents. You submit proposals, space proposals, how are you going to use the space, what space you want, if you want to show with anybody, how are you going to divide spaces in here. And they do have certain spaces that you can work in or show, basically. Yeah. Then you have a week to set it all up.
Yeah, that's a bit more refined than my personal experience through academia. You know, you had to apply for the BFA programming, so the solo show or showing was not like a requirement or part of the expectations. But then you got through. I'm purposely omitting the name of my university so doesn't sound too bad on them. But you got studio space. You selected 2 mentors to help you go through the process. You get that one-on-one, but the submission process, the depth that you speak of, preparing imagery, things like that, was a bit more loose. Honestly, if it wasn't loose, I probably wouldn't have graduated with that, portion, just because I did a full pivot. Like, okay, last year, I'm not doing what I was doing before. I'm going to do plasma. To fill it, I was lucky enough to have a neon guy give it a shot. And then I finished up the pieces when I went up to Chicago to meet up with Ash Williamson. So it's, I feel like you had a better preparation that will help you succeed post-graduation than what I've presented myself through or was presented with. So that's pretty awesome. Let's take a quick break here.
Got it.
Hello, podcast listeners. I want to thank everyone for their support for Taming Lightning, especially those who are supporting me through Patreon. They help cut the cost of hosting the podcast, and for their contributions, receive some additional benefits. A new patron has donated on the Patreon under the $5 tier for co-learner, which qualifies for a personal shout-out on the podcast. Thank you, Aaron Rastaw, my blood brother of a different plasma, who has offered much support and perspective on practice of plasma light sculpture, and has since previously been a guest on the podcast as part of episode 17 for Glass Plasma Parlay, and having offered a donation through Ko-fi, Aaron will have a Patreon token added to their listing on the Taming Lightning page of patrons, where I hope to try and include everyone who has supported Taming Lightning via donations on Ko-fi, guesting on the podcast, small fundraisers, and even gifts, be it supplies, equipment, and or services. And if you've been following on the blog, I've been updating the website and have recently added a Taming Lightning store. That means shirts, aprons, drinkware, and lately 3D models as inspired by the needs of my co-learners from the classes I've been teaching this summer. I've made some updates on the Patreon page as well, and as a value subscriber at the $5 co-learner tier, you'll now enjoy unlimited access to these models. And if you're not on Patreon yet, you could take advantage of our 7-day trial to explore all the benefits on offer. This means you can download the models for free and tips or together in progress guides during your first 7 days and see how they enhance your experience. Check out what's in store at www.taminglightning.net/store. And if you'd like to support me on Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/taminglightning. Now, back to the podcast. All right, welcome back. So we're going to look at Ethan Samaha's work. I'm also doing a video recording of this as well, so we can show you guys what exactly we're looking at. But we'll do our best to describe the works as we go through it, just as we describe many other works from the previous podcast series, Intro to Plasma. So, Ethan, we're going to look at some of the work that you have on your website, which is your most recent exhibition, your graduating exhibition. Can you tell us the title of that show?
Yes. So the title of the show was Horizontal Vertical. And it instead of using text, I wanted to use just symbols to represent what the idea behind the show was, or that whole consistent thing throughout the show.
Yeah. So it's literally represented by a horizontal line and a vertical line.
Yeah.
On as the show title, which is above his name. And it tangent. This just reminds me of like the master, the Grandmaster Yip Man movie, where he talked about the horizontal vertical, where the horizontal is dead. But this has no relation to that at all.
Yeah. And thankfully my graduate show was sponsored by Ventex, and they sponsored and gave me all the transformers I needed for some of these larger works. So shout out to Morgan Crook and Jessica Graves for all the support for sponsoring the show.
How'd you end up connecting to make this sponsorship?
I went to Sarah, and I had these big projects, Sarah Blood, and these big projects, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to power these. They're big tubes. They're not big tubes, but there's a lot of tubes in a short amount of area, and they're varying between 8mm and like 10mm, or even 18 at some points. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to afford these or anything. And she was like, why don't you contact Morgan Crook and see if they'll sponsor you or anything. So they sponsored all the She Bends shows, and I was like, let me just see if I can. So I sent them a proof of concept of stuff that I was like, these are going to require X amount of transformers, or this has 32 8mm tubes. Is there any way that I could get some transformers or just some help, or looking for a discount, kind of a discount on transformers? And they reached back out to me within a couple hours and were like, would love to sponsor your show and all that. And I was very grateful for that, and was able to power my entire show. Awesome.
Shout out to Morgan Crook and crew at Ventex. If you guys are interested to hear about Morgan Crook, he is on the Neon Nonsense podcast, I believe episode number 4. So check out that podcast for some insight on just the type of person Morgan is, and the kind of insights he has about neon, and willingness to reach out and help those in the neon community, budding and maintaining and current. So what work should we look at first? Should we start at the bottom here, where you have the earliest works, or you start at the top? I'm not sure if you have a particular order for this exhibition.
Let's start from the exhibition itself. So through horizontal vertical, through the process of being at Alfred, I was heavily influenced by some of the great art, like James Turrell is a huge influence in just space and perception and all that. So through the exhibition, I was taking a look and ended up designing the whole entire space as a quote unquote maze of color through the space. So I was able to design where all the walls go, the spaces, and then really was able to determine where each work goes and sees how the work goes down. So
sorry, I just kind of like, I didn't know you could navigate the site. Like, I didn't know what's going on. Sorry.
So through the whole thing, I was really messing around with people's perception of color through research. So I was researching into the human eye and taking a look at how people perceive color. So through research, I figured out that everyone sees color very differently. So red, myself or to you, but we were all told that red is red. We see it by slightly shade, a shade difference and all that, because the cones in our eyes and all that. That goes into a lot more research. So I was playing with that, but then I was like also playing with the idea of chain and light, like heavy and light objects. So all the work that is hung from the ceiling is hung with chain and then supporting this super light material.
Yeah, you have this array of glass, and the chain tells us that it's a heavy object. But when we look at the object, glass, neon tubing, we're like, there's a bit of a conflict in our minds a bit. I'm a little disappointed. You didn't do a 360 video walkthrough of the entire exhibition. I know you have the technology.
There is. I'll send it to you, and I got to post it on the website.
Okay, comment redacted. I am not disappointed. I am extremely excited.
Yes, I will send it out.
So, do you know the name of this first work that we have showed up here?
Yes. So the way that I do titles is very, very kind of very not descriptive, but it tells you what the piece you're looking at is. So the very first piece that opened horizontal vertical is called yellow, and it as many yellows as there are yellow tubes in the piece. And the way that I like to show them is, especially in this body of work, is how the tubes are laid out. So all these tubes are horizontal. So in the title, yellow is repeated vertically, so it gives a representation of the actual piece. But it's all 8mm, I think, tropical yellow, pumped argon mercury with custom 3D printed parts.
Nice.
Hanging, making this curtain or blinds, basically, type form.
And also, is this additional lighting in the background, or is that from other pieces?
It's from other pieces.
Oh, I love this. Like not only am I looking at this piece in this picture, I'm looking at the light that's being produced in the background. It's actually producing its own like atmosphere.
Yeah, and that's something that I really wanted to go for was the atmospheric element. I was really tempted to put haze or some sort of fog in the.
I'm glad you didn't.
Just to say, yeah, just to see, because I like that idea of light can only be seen when it hits an object.
Yeah,
you can't see it through space. So with tubing or plasma, you see the electricity, but in neon, you see it hitting the unit, hitting the actual tube, and then nothing in between the space between the tube itself and the wall, unless you see it on the wall. So I was really tempted to put fog or haze in it, but that's future exhibitions, I think.
Awesome. Let's move on to the next piece here.
So the next piece is green aqua green, and with this piece in particular, I was really thinking of getting how to fit as many tubes in a small area as possible. So there's 3 12 millimeter tubes. Actually, there's 4 in this cluster that's no bigger than probably 1.5 inches by 4 feet wide.
There's 4. Are you doubled up here on the second layer?
Yes. So when I produce pieces, I always think of how wiring's going to look. Or what's the path of least resistance for electricity. So with tubing, I found that even numbers work the best. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, whatever. So that the green aqua green has 4 tubes. There's a green, an aqua, a green, and then there's a clear tube, just argon. And that argon tube is just, I'm using it as a conductor of electricity instead of having a second or a third color in the piece. So it's kind of hidden, but that will be seen in other.
Oh, yeah. I'm just like, I want to zoom in, but I can't.
It's a tight area.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. It's also leading you around the corner here with the blue here. Are you following around the corner for this next image?
Yes.
Okay.
So, while I'm talking about Alfred, Sarah really pushes experimentation. she really pushes experimentation of whatever you really want to explore. So if that's gas, for me, it was gas mixing. It was super high pressure fills and all that. So this next image is two 18 millimeter Krypton tubes, filled upwards of 250 torrs per tube.
So that's a high pressure.
It's super high pressure. They get extremely hot and they make an audible sound that is heard in the video.
Are they kind of plinking?
Very loud plinking. And they both have to run off their own transformers because they're so big. So they are, in the image that we're in now, those Krypton tubes are off to the left in that corner.
Okay.
It's the darkest corner of the whole space. So
do you have video on the website or no?
I'll put it in.
Okay.
I got to put it in. I'm trying to figure out how to.
I'm catching you just after how long ago was this exhibition?
May.
Yeah, I'm catching you just a little bit after that. Yeah, you got time.
Yeah,
that's a lot of documentation. You got to curate that and place it on the website so it works really well.
Mm-hmm.
I had no problem with that. I have backlogs of episodes from almost 2 years ago. So,
So as you come around this corner from yellow, repeated 10 times, to green, aqua, green, to the Krypton piece, to you're followed into this space. It's about 8 feet by 30. I think it's 20 feet wide. Mm-hmm. Where these two hanging blue panels are.
And they're facing each other.
Yes, they are facing each other. So they're one's. This is where the title came part of. One's all neon mercury 5 foot 8 millimeter tubes on the left as soon as you enter, and they're vertical, and then on the other side of this room there's all 8 millimeter horizon blue pumped argon mercury, and it's such a subtle blue from each because the neon mercury is a icier blue.
Oh, really?
Than the horizon blue.
I did not know there was a distinction there.
There's a very, very fine line. So I was I want to play with that idea of the blues being two different things and seeing that transition.
Is that the same tube color?
No, they're two different colors.
Okay,
So there's the ones all on the left are clear.
Oh.
Are clear tubes, and then the ones on the right, which are horizontal, are all horizon blue, which is a kind of a very standard blue, and they're very subtle, and you start to see this right in the middle.
I know the segmentation is just a happen chance of the construction, but it almost looks like those color chips you had to do for color theory. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you had to do that for 2D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the walls are 4 foot panels that are, then we have to tape them, paint them, and sand them smooth if you like. And I kind of attempted as much as I could. But then also these are very unedited photos that I just kind of just put up there to get them out into the universe. But I do have edited photos. So as you enter these, as you enter this space, you see all the vertical tubes, and then as you look down this sort of corridor, or as Sarah Blood calls it, and I love her explanation, the vistas.
Yeah.
As you enter in, that's probably my favorite word to describe these spaces. You see this tube, basically a wood panel with all these horizontal tubes that are suspended from.
I really like that it's a frame and not just an opaque panel. Mm-hmm. Something about just what's happening here as it hits the frame is I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be as open as possible and still structural for the sake of transporting or building these on on site. And then on the opposite side of where you enter, or right on the left, as soon as you enter the space, it's all neon mercury tubes.
A lot of transformers.
It's about 12,000 volts. And they're 5-foot tubes, so you've got to factor in footage and electrodes, and it's a lot. It's a lot of power.
Yeah, what people need to understand with neon is that it does require to have wires. We're not doing Tesla stuff here. There's only so far you can go with that. Only so many frequencies you're legally allowed to have and the reach of that. And that it does require these things to kind of be hooked up to these other devices to power it. And just imagine those things are the pedestal that you forget exists in your gallery or the white wall in the museum.
Yep.
That's what they are.
Yep.
I get a lot of people saying they don't want to do stuff because of wires or cords or power supplies or outlets. And I'm like, but you have a cell phone though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like this too. That you're seeing it through the horizontal horizon blue through to the icy vertical, which is like, if you had it any other way, I don't think that would have worked. Because like horizon is horizontal. Mm-hmm. And you thought about that.
I did.
You had to have thought about that. That doesn't happen chance. You just let me just turn this way.
No.
It's intentional.
It is very sort of intentional and stuff like that. I think about it, and even down to the little details of all these tubes all the mounts are 3 inches from the electrode splice. So down to that measurement, or all the boots. I had a couple of friends, Carissa Grace, who's also a neon artist, who also went to Alfred. She helped me with all these installs, and I can't think her more than all the help me wired and figure out how to run wires through, especially on some of these top ones. There's a clear tube that just has the GTO running through it as a spacer to get the electricity back. So that very, very, very top, there's the two loops, and then that other home run goes all the way on the top through 2 eye bolts.
Nice.
So she gave me that idea, and
genius.
And it was super genius. The same with the Krypton. Same with the Krypton pieces. There's the Krypton tubes and then a tube right next to it that houses the high voltage wire.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the setup at Trace Brewing. You probably haven't seen. Let me pull it up real quick so you can see. So someone obviously took some images, which is great, because I was talking about this installation with Tim Takis and Hugh Elliott. And where's it at? You can look at the images off of Google there at their on their Google setup here, and they had these vertical neon setups in here. You can see it well here or not. No, that's not it. There we go. So what they did is you think they would double back it, but they didn't want that look. The client didn't want the double back look. So what they did is they had it hanging vertically, and then they had a little like clear silicone tubing coming up just beside it, thick, and so it's almost invisible. You don't even notice, even in these images here. If you look close enough, you probably would be able to see it, but you're not really going to see that whatsoever, even in these closer images.
So it just disappears.
Yeah.
Good, and in some instances,
Yeah.
and others they don't. Like all my work, I don't use double backs at all. only because I don't like the look of that light disappearing. Or like I'm really a huge fan of seeing the gas electrified by the electrode, and that's the start of the piece.
Yeah.
And with all the work, I was really I just wanted to use bare wire.
Yeah.
I just wanted to use raw electricity going straight through. I like the danger element of that. But then I was like, if I'm going to be doing a lot of electricity and a lot of 12,000 volts in the space, it's like I need to at least put some on certain pieces.
Yeah.
So I Signtech UK, love them for silicone boots and clear GTO and clear boots of any kind.
Yeah.
They're really good. Mm-hmm. Not sponsored by those, but I'm just saying I love their stuff. So then as you walk around the back of the vertical blue icy tubes, you enter into this pink fuchsia room that is very similar to the green aqua green, but it is vertically placed, and there's 3 fuchsia tubes with a novial gold in the middle, as that sort of hidden surprise.
Is there more to this on the site, or is that all you have for this collection right now?
That's all right now in this collection. And then everything else is sort of special, sort of individual pages for each of the
Okay.
pieces.
Got it.
But there is the line.
Is that one? This right here?
Just the line. This is that high pressure that I was telling you about yesterday. I was really trying to get, when you get krypton at a high pressure, you get a beautiful delta tube. It's gorgeous, sometimes touch sensitive. And I was like, I really wanted to push if I could get neon in that way, or argon in that way. And Sarah Blood is always adamant of testing, mm-hmm. see if it works and all that. And I was able to get argon in a super delicate line in a dark room. It's elegant. That's the word I can think of. But it's at a secret tour. It's kind of up there, but it's not too high up there.
Yet secret, yet the path to knowledge is knowable. Test.
Yeah. I mean, if you really want to know that one, message me and I'll let you know.
No, let them learn. What is it? The saying, give a man a fish, he'll be able to eat for a day. Teach him how to fish, and he'll know how to eat.
Yeah,
I guess I don't
something
know.
like
something
that.
like that. I don't know how the eloquent way, but
Yeah, sorry.
You could tell them that, and then they just do it,
mm-hmm.
and then you just hope they have the curiosity to play with it.
Mm-hmm. And then I don't know. You can pick the next one.
Which one? This is from the show right here.
Yeah.
Is this also from the show, or is this a different one?
It's the same one. The one in the show is larger than this one. This was the very first yellow.
It's a lot of yellow.
It's a lot of yellow. So I like, in a lot of my work, I just like to use a singular color. Mm-hmm. But I do also like to mix colors and create an atmosphere from it. A series that's not on the website just yet was from a article from 1905 of the use of neon in businesses. So neon in restaurants and movie theaters, in theaters and arcades. Of if you put together a red and 2 whites, you get a pink. You sort of get a pink glow in the room. Mm-hmm. Or what was the other one? Cinema. I think cinema was 2 greens and a red. So this historic element to pass neon and bringing it into the future, and those were all clusters similar to green aqua green. Where I developed that, I'll send you photos and you can put them in, or I'll put them up on the website hopefully by the end of this week. So right here, this is that little piece of PLA printed. It's just rings that are there. So the yellow is all sort of tensioned based, or it's just sitting there. So all the tubes are just loose on there, and the chain that's holding it goes up to a single point. So it does shift and move if you do touch it. It does spin around because it's at a single point, or it does teeter-totter.
Don't touch it.
Don't touch it, basically. I'm trying to think.
See, these are really cool. Like, but then part of my brain starts to think about things like, do you just hold on to this forever?
Yeah.
Or does it go to a museum, and is a person supposed to be able to own it?
Yeah, I don't know. There's some things that I think that are good for owning and in a household. And there's some that I think are more museum or gallery pieces that are that's weird. That are special, like sort of gallery or museum worth, or anything could be put in a home. It's just going to be bright.
Yeah. Blinding.
Yes. So the one that's up right now, it's red clear. So they're 8-foot tubes with just pure neon and 15 millimeter. But the clear tube I bumped out just a little bit to see how out of order it could be. A lot of my work is just very, very ordered based, very linear. I like the use of a line to describe light, or just to describe a phenomenon within the space. But this one is also suspended by chain and then pike wire, which is the best thing. Thank you, Sarah Blood, for introducing pike wire.
Pike wire?
It's not fishing line. It's not monofilament, but it's super thin it's almost super thin aircraft cable, but it's made for fishing for pike. It is invisible. It's not invisible as fishing line, but it's intentionally invisible. It is. Thank you, Sarah. I cannot thank Sarah Blood enough for introducing that. Because fishing line, you're going to see it.
Yeah.
But it's a very little pike wire. Best thing out there. So it was just a cluster of tubes put together, which was surprisingly long and heavy. And then that use of a 15,000 solid state is the weight of it is the visual weight of this box powering a mass amount of neon.
I'm starting to really understand the clustering now. I can really see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cluster.
I call them clusters. I don't know of a good name yet.
I know, like cluster seems right. Bundle.
Yeah, cluster bundle.
But like bundle is like soft, but these are also hard. It's hard and soft.
Yeah.
Like bundle clusters, cluster bundles.
So I categorize clusters as a gathering of tubes, or a mass amount in a small area. Those ones are good too, but they're not neon.
What? Which one?
The one on the right.
Why not? This is light.
It's light, yeah. So the one we're looking at now is I call it LV. It's a part of another series. Kind of a backstory on these. It was the last day before finals, and during the first semester of my senior year, I was building boxes to sort of explore the phenomenology of light within a controlled space, instead of a architectural space, which I later moved on to. Built a box, painted it, needed to wood glue it, can't wood glue wood to painted surfaces.
No.
Found that out. So then I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do for this crit. Went to Walmart, went to Lowe's, which is the closest places, bought a bunch of light bulbs, and was like, let me just play, let me not think, all that. And I had this sheet of latex. For whatever reason, I was slightly obsessed with latex, just for the transparency element of it. So this one is a black light bulb behind this very thin sheet of latex hung by chain, because my chain is visually appealing to me. I don't know if it's
I don't know.
I don't know. There's something for me I need to figure out. I've been figuring it out for a little bit, but
I've been using some chain in some of my, I'll call them sketches, because for my onus pieces, it's about kind of really showing a restriction of glass. And when I weld all these chain together, which, oh my goodness, you blow into it, it's a cage, and it starts to bulge and protrude from the openings. I don't know, it just seemed like the right type of constriction. Where if you've seen some of the other images where people are using wire, copper wire, or to cage it, it just doesn't seem like it makes sense. It makes when you have something like chain, it makes the glass or whatever you're trying to capture more tangible. If you have a wire, it makes it like a bubble, like blowing soap bubbles. It seems like it's very ephemeral. But it's, for me, and I'm using glass and I'm protruding it through, the want to capture this primordial shape or idea, where glass becomes these other objects or textures or shapes or icons. That's my kind of thinking about chain. I mean, it fits a particular narrative, but it also, you talk about what it actually is perceived at. You're looking at perception. Perception of the change is like, this is heavy. I need to sit on this for a bit.
Yeah. And I think it's also not the object that we're hanging is not floating. I don't like the idea of floating objects. I want it to be seen that it's like hung by the floor or suspended by the ceiling or off the ground or whatever, so that visual weight of it.
And you come from glass from a non-glassy-eyed perspective. Most glassy people, they want to make things float.
I don't like that. Sometimes I do, but not all the time.
You want people to see where it's anchoring, whether or not the anchoring is the actual hanging mechanism. For example, like the last piece we looked at, red, clear. The anchoring point was not the pike wire, but it was the transformer.
Yeah. And that, it all depends, because like a lot of this stuff in horizontal vertical, my BFA show, it was the transformers were always part of it, or they were down below or off to the side and kind of invisible with that semi-clear GTO. To where red, clear, it's got the chain anchoring, but then it's also got this floating aspect of it with the pike wire, and then that transformer grounding as you were talking about.
Did I miss the chain anchoring?
There's chain in it. It's very little. It's right above. It's
wow! It's like right there.
Yeah,
I forgot it existed.
And that's what I like. It's just something there that it's like, okay, what's this, and does that play a factor into what the viewer's looking at or what the audience is looking at?
It's because it was next to this vertical line here. It's like, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
this is the thing, and this is the thing.
that is a big transformer.
Oh my goodness.
So,
all right. So now I see the chains everywhere.
Yeah. Besides in the Obscure Sense 3, which is the very, very last one on our website.
Why is there no chain here?
There's no chain because this was all.
There should just be a chain down here to the foot. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know, but obscure. I'll talk about this one. Obscure Sense times 3 was actually the very first neon piece that I made for Sarah Blood's Lighting Glass class.
Okay.
Very, very first. I think Sarah.
I'm gonna call up Sarah on that one. Did you do a make whatever assignment?
I think it was make your very first tube, or here's an idea, go explore with it. And I was really fascinated with the eyes and perception and all that. That I was really curious on the space, how we perceive space with our eyes shut, because you still kind of know references. Like if you're walking through the space, you can shut your eyes and still kind of know where the walls are without even touching them. Mm-hmm. I was like, how do I do this, but make it neon and make it light, and explore what I want to do and all that. So I bent these 5. Really, there was like 10, but I broke 5. They had holes in them. 5 arcs of red, yellow tubing pumped red. So it was giving off this red. And then a friend of mine, Chloe Kotwitz, shout out to Chloe Kotwitz. She had this chair. She had this super, I don't even know how to describe the chair.
I mean, it looks, it's tufted.
It's tufted for sure.
So it looks like it's between like luxury and timely.
Yes, but she had this chair, and I was like, it's the perfect. It's red velvet, and I was like, can I borrow this chair for the crit? I need this chair. I was like, I don't want people standing. I want people sitting, and I want these arcs to be within a couple inches of the viewer's face, so the viewer's allowed to sit in the chair, be sort of blasted with this red light, both with their eyes open, eyes shut, and then they hear the buzz of the 15,000 volts of electricity in their ear as they sit there. And it is extremely blinding. No matter what. Sitting in the chair, it's a lot. So that was the very, very, very first piece. And that I was like, this is really cool. I can make light and color and sort of emotion in it a little bit. So
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh man.
I think some of the boxes are on here too from the very first semester. No, those are later. We don't have to talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, so what are you working on now then?
So I'm right.
Are you making work for a show?
Right now, I have my first piece in a show in Cleveland at the Kaiser Gallery that opens December 4th, runs until February 6th in Cleveland, in this cute neighborhood. Tremont, Ohio, neighborhood in Cleveland. Could talk hours about it. Not going to do that. I have my very first show outside of university. I've got 2 pieces in it. I got LV, which is the black light and latex piece in it. And then Line, as I call it. It's a very first neon cluster with 3D printed parts. It's just two red pieces of neon opposite of each other, and then there's 4 clear pieces of glass tubing that are flanking each side, kind of. So it's two clear, and then there's 2 reds on the side. Because I was also reading into, at that time of creating that piece, I was reading into phosphor coated tubes, pumping them a different color. So instead of pumping them argon mercury, pumping them with neon and getting a totally different color.
Right.
So like E40, if you pump that with neon, you get a pink, I believe, instead of a red. So I was reading that if you pump 4500 with red, with neon, you get like a tangerine orange. Didn't work out that way, but I need to do more research on that. But
Disappointed.
yeah, but commercial vendors and everyone else like sort of knows workaways around around colors, like a pink, pump a white with a red, or all that. So yeah, so I have that, but I'm still creating. I'm making some new work.
There's so much I need to learn.
there's a lot out there, and there's a lot of learning everywhere. But I'm still thinking about work, still making some stuff, still with the line. I use this goes back to the whole thing. I use the line as a way just to explore color and light without form. But the form comes in 3D objects. So I'm always designing new holders for neon out there that I want to explore with light, color perception, all that. So I'm making that. But I'm also the studio manager at Craft Studio, which is Craig Craft Studio in DC. So I keep track of all the projects in the studio all at once. I do all the sort of emails of keeping contracts with clients and making sure that we're getting paid.
Yeah.
And then inventorying everything that's in the studio, so I know what's all happening, making patterns, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, you need people like you in those positions, because once you get out of track with invoicing, who your clients are, what the project is, what needs to be shipped out, when it needs to be shipped out, you start. That's where things fall apart. Mm-hmm. It's an anchor point.
Yeah,
and the chain.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So it's trying to keep track of everything that's going on and where everything is in progression. If stuff are in process, we just started, or heading out the door and all that. So it's like 10 projects right now at the current moment that we're trying to get work on top of Craig's own studio stuff, his own making process.
Yeah. So like, how'd you end up finding that position? Did you know Craig beforehand? Did you have a secret in, or you just like walk?
Was this goes back to the very end of the semester of Alfred. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get home. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I still want to be in neon and all that, but I don't know if I want to go into commercial, if I want to go into artist assistant and all that. So I was looking around in DC. There's very few shops in DC or in the area. And majority of them are commercial. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go into commercial yet.
Right.
So I found Craig, shot him an email, and was like, hey, I'm just graduating from Alfred. I'm looking for a place to prompt work that I brought home or that I'm going to be making in the near future. And he was like, come down, let's have a chat, let's meet up and all that. So I drove down to DC, met up with him, and then he sort of just offered me the position of studio manager right there on the spot, of knowing neon and having a background in neon and the whole process of making instead of just installing or pattern making. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah. It really shows you that I can't imagine a better person to work with for you. Because you get to see how they navigate both their own work. You be able to sit there, maybe have discussions and talk about things, and be able to see what the commercial side offers and how Craig navigates that. Now I got to have him on the podcast. I got to bring him on in.
Yes, and especially with Craig is that he's running the studio as an artist studio. He's running it as his own personal studio, his own work, and that's something that I really want to learn. I kind of want to set up my own shop in a couple years down the road and all that. But seeing how an artist runs a studio that does take in some repairs from other places, private clients, all that. So to see how public work, private work, repairs, and all that happen would still continue a an artist-ran studio.
Nice. Hey, just as we talked yesterday, definitely like write out. We have a rolling residency program here at the Pittsburgh Glass Center. But do it, man. I mean, I got Xenon. I got a whole bunch of Kryptons. You don't have to use all his Krypton up. I know nowadays Krypton is super expensive, but if you want to come down and do some stuff, I know in the next week or so I will have my fires up for one set up. The fires ready, and we can do crazy shit. I mean, we have people pull tubing. And you can just kind of play.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
I play with some tubing and hold it on to because I'm waiting for people to. So
where can we find you on the internets?
You can find me on Instagram at Ethan_Samaha. I have a Facebook page, but the Facebook page is not active. And then my website's ethansamaha.com. So those are two main points. And from the website, you can find my Instagram and all that. So
nice.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to leave our listeners with?
Experiment. Allow yourself to experiment. That's the best thing I can say. Play, and experiment. Crazy things can happen at any time. So,
thank you. I really appreciate giving me a call out here so that I can definitely meet you and talk plasma, neon, illumination. This is fun.
Yes, I like geeking out, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for listening to the Taming Lightning podcast. Music credits to the following artists in order of appearance: Retro by One, Taming Lightning by Trav B. Ryan, Next Time by Haiku, and Walking by Roz Hobb. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Since this recording, Ethan and I have stayed in touch, sharing our journey of navigating the process of creating our own work in this ever-changing world with constantly evolving access to equipment and facilities. And I am thrilled to share some exciting news that Ethan Samaha's residency at the Pittsburgh Glass Center in April 2023 was a success. And in the next episode, we have the pleasure of hearing from Ethan himself as he delves into his fascinating color choices and palette for pulling tubing using furnace-blown glass and color. Get ready for an insightful discussion you won't want to miss. Also, I'd like to thank the Pittsburgh Glass Center for supporting me as a place of research and inspiration, as well as the Plasma Art Alliance, where I have an access to a well of knowledge and connects me to some amazing and supportive people. If you'd like to support Taming Lightning, subscribe on the newsletter on www.taminglightning.net or follow on Instagram at Taming Lightning. Other options for support are one-time donations through Ko-fi, spelled ko-fi.com/taminglightning. Or you can join me on Patreon for additional perks and benefits. I'll have links provided in the show notes. Feel free to share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.